Welcome to Sisters in Christ.
I'm Brittany.
I'm Lainey. Welcome back to our second episode.
So last week was our first episode, and we are so thankful for you guys. We were blown away by the support.
Your guys' support means so much to us. It just brightens our day, and all the comments saying how wonderful that they felt afterwards. And
yeah, that was
just
awesome.
Really helped motivate us for this week.
So much. We are so excited to share with you what we have this week and for the coming weeks. We have a whole schedule written out leading up to Mother's Day, it looks like.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank you guys so much. I mean, I guess to get kind of serious pretty quick is just that we both love working at the group home. It's very fulfilling to us. But for me, I love helping people, and every job that I've had, I felt like I wasn't helping people in the way that I should be, and that God had a bigger plan for me.
So I felt like God was working in the group home, like we need to be there.
Yeah.
But we definitely feel like He has more in store for us, and our journey doesn't stop there. He wants us to do more. I think that just involves helping somebody.
Yeah.
And we're helping people at the group home. We're helping people that can't help themselves.
Right.
You know, we're cooking, we're cleaning, we're
bathing,
passing
medication.
medications, and we're helping those people like God wants us to.
But it's just felt like, even though, yeah, we're helping, it just feels like, is this really all He wants for me to do with my life?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we want to talk about a little bit, is just knowing the difference between our brains talking to us and us saying what we want to say to ourselves. Like, no, Brittany, you need to be a millionaire, you know, and can you differentiate if it's God talking or your brain?
So I don't know about you, but I know that I struggle knowing what's God's voice and what's my own.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Whenever I want something, it's like, well, God, just give it to me.
Yeah.
You know, that's not how it works. It's just He'll give you what you need, not always what you want. And
Right.
That's been a struggle of mine, just hearing His voice and not knowing if it's my own, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with my life.
I do this silly thing, and I was talking to my mom and Lainey earlier, and I was like, you know, sometimes when I want something from God and I really want it, I'll be like, hey, God, you should give me a sign. And then I'll ask for a silly sign, and then I'll get that sign, and I'll be like, oh, was that a sign? I don't know what you're trying to say to me. Like, I just feel like it's a really kind of hard sometimes to just be like, God, is that you?
Yeah.
You know? So we kind of wanted to talk about Samuel. We're going to kind of go out of the Bible a little bit more today than I guess we did last time, but that's totally good because we were just introducing ourselves. But we're going to go into Samuel, 1 Samuel 3, and we're going to talk about how Samuel was ministering under Eli. Lainey, do you want to read it?
So 1 Samuel 3, verses 1 through 10. Yeah. Meanwhile, the boy Samuel served the Lord by assisting Eli. Now in those days, messages from the Lord were very rare, and visions were quite uncommon. One night, Eli, who was blind by now, had gone to bed. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle near the ark of God. Suddenly the Lord calls out, Samuel. Yes, Samuel replied. What is it? He got up and ran to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? I didn't call you, Eli replied. Go back to bed. So he did. Then the Lord called out again, Samuel. Again, Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? I didn't call you, my son, Eli said. Go back to bed. Samuel did not yet know the Lord because he had never had a message from the Lord before. So the Lord called a third time, and once more Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? Then Eli realized it was the Lord who was calling the boy. So he said to Samuel, Go and lie down again, and if someone calls you again, say, Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. So Samuel went back to bed. And the Lord called and called as before, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel replied, Speak, your servant is listening.
Right.
I got goosebumps.
Aww. So basically, I guess what we really realized was that we're not the only ones who don't know that if it's God or not, you know. And part of the lesson I got from this was that Samuel had to be laying down before he could hear God. Like, he was so quiet and just, you know, right before you go to sleep, you're just calm and relaxed and like your mind's clear and you're really just you're focusing on sleeping, but you know, that's the only time you can really hear is just when you're calm and cool and collected. Like if you're running around and everything's going crazy, then you're not going to be able to hear God talk. Like you have to give that time.
You have to be able to listen. And I think throughout everyday, your everyday life, you're not really listening for him to actually speak because you're only thinking about what to do, and you're only thinking about there's responsibilities that have to be fulfilled throughout the day, and you're just not taking the time to really listen to God.
Right. One example I guess we could give is that, like, when I felt like I heard God, I was literally listening to motivational videos. I've made myself sit down in the bath, like I took a bubble bath, and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna focus on this. And then when I finally was still and calm, that's when I heard it. But it also took other things to be calm in my life, not just me being quiet and taking that time. Like I was stressing out. Like normally I have 2 jobs. The last 2 years I've had 2 jobs at the same time, and I was freaking out because I only had this one job, and it was a very part-time job. And I was like applying it everywhere, and it just felt like nothing was working. It took that, me just saying, okay, I'm just going to stay here full time and just kind of just let it be, and let God take over. That's whenever I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like,
That's kind of what I mentioned last week. For an example for me, last week I mentioned I didn't really know what to do, and Brittany made the support group page, and it was like a blinking sign from God saying, what,
do this.
Yeah. Do this, and you'll be fulfilling his will. I really feel like with this podcast, I feel like I'm doing what he wants me to do.
Right.
I haven't been excited about anything like this before, and it feels like I'm actually doing what he wants me to do.
Right. One thing we do is that we spend all of our time asking and talking to God, but like we really have to ask, like, when do we listen? Like I'm constantly like, God, please take care of my family, please do this, please do that. But I never just take the time to just be with God and just listen. So the other thing is that, your purpose doesn't just happen. There are stages and seasons you have to go through. And so each season has its own purpose. It's not just one big purpose. Well, is it one just big? It's not just one big purpose for like the end of your life. It's just each season has a purpose, and each purpose gets you to a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
We're going to kind of go back into the Bible again, into the end of 1 Samuel, and then into the 2 Samuel, talking about David. But it basically just goes into how David had to slay a bear and a lion before he could go and get the confidence to slay Goliath, who, by the way, was like 9 foot tall and is super big. And he was just like, I can do it. I've killed a lion and a bear. Like, let me do it,
I definitely do not have that confidence with anything.
Basically, and with David, he had all these steps he had to go through to end up being the king. And he didn't realize he was going to be king. But at the very beginning, he had to slay a bear and a lion. And then when he did that, then he ran into the Goliath situation. I don't know if I can call it that, but we ran into the Goliath situation, and he ended up being so confident with Goliath because he had already conquered a bear and a lion, So each season and each stage of his life, there was a purpose. His purpose was to defeat the bear. His purpose was to defeat the lion, and then his purpose was to defeat Goliath. And then after Goliath, there were wars that he had went through. But one war that he had gone through was with the Philistines. And he says in 2 Samuel chapter 5, so I guess a little bit before verse 20 and 19, it says, So David inquired of the Lord, Shall I go and attack the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hands? The Lord answered, Go, for I will surely deliver the Philistines into your hands. So David went to, now I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, okay. But it's Baal-perazim. I don't know, Perazim. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he defeated them. And he said, As waters break out, the Lord has broken out against my enemies before me. So that place was called Baal-perazim. And I learned in my church service this week that actually translates to the Baal-perazim that I can't pronounce, translates to the Lord who breaks through. So David thought, this is it. This is my place. I've conquered the Philistines. I've conquered them. This is what my purpose was. And really, God was just getting started. Like, he had all of this stuff that he had to do.
See, that's kind of like just in your own life. You know, you go through the stages of life. So you start, you know, when you're in kindergarten, your main purpose is to get through that grade, then first, second, third. Then you're in high school, and your purpose is to graduate.
Right.
And then your purpose is maybe to go to college, maybe join the military, maybe just go out into the workforce.
Right.
And you have to, whatever God's purpose is for you, that's what you do. And it's kind of hard to know. It's hard to feel like when you're doing your purpose, it's hard to realize that that's not going to be forever.
Right. It's just your season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But your season has a big impact on the rest of your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess basically the point we're trying to get across there is that God's not done with you. You have a beating heart, you have a breath in your lungs, and God isn't done. So don't feel like just because you haven't got to your purpose yet, or your big purpose, that you're failing, because whatever season you're in now has a reason, and there's a reason for it, and it's getting you there. So at the same time, you have got to be prepared to fight. Pay attention to the people that you are letting around you. Sometimes that kind of gets in our way of remembering that we have a purpose, I guess. So, like, do you want the things that they say and do rubbing off on you? How many times have you worked close with someone and the things that they say you pick up on?
Oh, all the time.
Okay, so I pick up on a phrase that a guy that we work with says. He always says mouse foot, and it's simple and harmless, but I'm literally, every time I think of him, I'm like, mouse foot? And I say it like he says it. Slang, I'm that way with slang.
Yes. So my oldest nephew is 13. So, he throws around all the new slang, I guess.
We sound old.
Now, I'm 24, so I'm not old. I just, I'm not in high school anymore.
Right.
I'm not in school at all anymore. So it's kind of like, what are you saying?
Right.
Him and my husband were playing Fortnite.
Of
And,
course.
Malachi was saying, I don't even remember what he said, but Trevor was like, that's low-key dumb lit. Putting all the phrases that Malachi had said together. And it was just so funny. And Malachi was just like, what are you saying?
Don't say that. Yeah.
He asked us not too long ago if we had colored TV when we were kids.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh.
And it's just funny to see how different it is.
That's funny.
Than what he's used to. He thinks that I was born when dinosaurs were around, and I'm only 24.
My brother, I think he's 4 years younger than me, and he says some things, but he doesn't say a lot of things, like lit and fire and all of that. But boy, the minute I try to even come in on it, he's like calling me out. It's all his fun.
Yep.
So just being aware of your surroundings. Don't allow them to get in your mind and let them tell you negative things. So there was a video that I listened to. He basically had gone to a counselor to tell her, like, I don't know how to stop being so negative to myself. Like, he was really mean to himself, and I don't know exactly what he was saying to himself, but I do that, and I'm like, you're so silly, you're fat, and it's like silly things that I say to myself. And she finally was like, who is that? Who is saying those things in your head? And he's like, it's me. What do you mean? Like, I'm not hearing voices. And she's like, no, whose voice is telling you that? And then he was like, oh, okay. He knew that she wanted, like, the answer, like, my mom or my dad or whatever. But he really realized that, like, who you let around you and who you let talk to you and, like, who you surround yourself with, that kind of becomes your mind's voice.
Well, see, that's kind of how society is today. There's a certain standard that women, men, anybody is supposed to fit. And if you're not in that mold, you're kind of not outcasted, but
there's something wrong with you if you're not, and it's not fair. That's so not fair.
It's like, okay, so if you go to a store to find clothes, they have it in 2 different sections, which, that's always been that way, that's fine. But they've made certain sizes go into, like, plus sizes now, and it's like a size 10.
Yeah, and a size 10 from one store, I'm about to get on the rant, from one store is a total,
completely
like,
different size.
7, or I don't even know if that's a thing, but it's like a lot smaller at a different store, or a lot bigger at a different, and it's so, that frustrates me, but that's a whole
other episode.
So encourage your mind voice to, encourage yourself. You have to do these little mantras, I guess, or sayings, and just say, no, that's not who I am. I'm this person. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm a soldier for God, and I have got to start acting like it, I guess.
In the society that we do live in, we do need to love ourselves. That's kind of what we went into last week. But God does love us. We're fulfilling his purpose, and he loves us throughout the struggles and leading up to his main purpose for us.
I guess another thing you need to ask yourself is, what are you using your power for? Everyone has the ability to make an impact, but the type of impact you make is all on you. Are you making a blessing of an impact, or are you being someone's negative mind voice? All of that, Satan will use that, that he'll use that against you. Really just be on guard and be aware of how you're acting towards someone, because you don't know what their season is. You don't know what they're going through. The other thing is that Satan will use your mess ups and your negative mind voice against you. And he'll tell you that you can't fulfill your purpose because of your actions. I know for me, I feel like whenever I'm telling someone, you're okay, you can do this, you can get through your purpose, like I'm being totally hypocritical, because I'm constantly in my head going, you can't do that, you can't do this.
I feel the same way too.
Yeah, and you just gotta fight him. You just gotta dig down and just fight
It's
him.
hard to not feel like a hypocrite when you do those things. And even if you aren't, no one's going to be perfect, but if you're not in a place right now that you're happy, it's okay to make someone else happy too.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to work on yourself, but it's okay if you make someone else's day, because you could be someone's blessing, and that's also blessing you.
Yeah, when you make someone else's day better, it makes you feel better.
For sure.
Even if it's not a full-on, I feel better, because there's just some seasons that you're just sad, but anyway, so understanding your purpose will require you getting out of your comfort zone. That's the other thing.
That's all this week has been.
Yeah.
These past 2 weeks, especially, it's getting out of our comfort zone. I am not, I love taking speech in school. I took it whenever I could, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. And this is so hard to be able to get yourself out of your comfort zone. It is so hard. That's kind of how I'm not able, I've never liked talking about myself.
Yeah.
And this is all we're doing. Like, we're talking about ourselves, putting ourselves out there. It's tough.
I get really nervous when I know that other people are going to hear me talking. And I can do a one-on-one conversation with you and feel completely fine, because I can stop myself and get what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
And be like, no, that's not what I mean. Let me explain it. But if I'm in front of a lot of people, or if I'm doing something like this, I have to really be sure, like, is that what I mean to say?
Yeah.
And so that makes me nervous, and I don't feel like I'm strong point isn't getting my thoughts to my, to my paper, out in the world. So you have to be willing to say, okay, God, here I am. I'm hungry for the purpose that you want me to have and the way you want me to live. And then really, I guess, commit to it.
Yeah. If there's no commitment, it's not going to work. You have to be 100%. You can't be lukewarm. So in Revelations 3:16, but since you're like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. And that's kind of like how commitment is. You have to be all in or nothing, because if you're not committed, it's not going to work.
Which is kind of scary, because you're like, I've really got to take a risk here. But if you don't take that risk, you're never going to know. And then it's not worth
your time and effort.
Your whole life is just going,
the little effort that you do put in anyway.
Right.
That's kind of what I felt, with my life, is that if you're just kind of wishy-washy with your decisions and not committing to your purpose, there's just no point.
Right. You're just wasting time.
You are.
Finally, when you get to where you do hear God and you are on your right path, you'll know. I think it's kind of like an aha moment, like, yes. Oh, that's it. That's what I'm supposed to do. You get excited. You're like, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And it kind of motivates you even more, because you realize what it is.
Yeah.
And you're excited about it.
That's how I was with this podcast. We were talking about wanting to do something. We weren't sure if we wanted to blog or even vlog or write a book.
Right.
And we were talking about this while we were working. Then on my way home, I was talking to my mom on the phone. She's like, well, why don't you just start a podcast? It was like, aha, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
And I was so excited. I was just so excited for this. I know that we've both put a lot of time and effort into this. I feel like we are fulfilling God's purpose for this stage.
Yeah.
For sure.
For our season right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's like when you did when you said, let's do a podcast, I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. And I got excited. But like, I feel like especially for the last week, it's been more of a, your purpose is to encourage other people. And
Yes.
I've been so stoked.
Yeah.
I love it.
See, last week's episode was more introducing who we are.
Yeah.
And this is kind of getting into the meat
Right.
of our...
Of what we really want it to be.
Yeah.
So I guess basically you're just going to know. You're going to know, and you've got a purpose coming. Like it's
Everyone's got a purpose. God didn't put you on this earth for nothing.
No.
God gives life, and he chooses who is on this earth. And it's just, he doesn't just put you here for no reason.
Right. And just because just because you can't hear him right now doesn't mean he's not pursuing you either. That's the greatest thing. Like, I'm so happy, like, that you can just kind of feel like he's pursuing us. You know what I mean? Like, he hasn't quit. And it's just taken us to just sit down and just really be calm for a minute to just get it and to hear it.
So let's just kind of go over what we've talked about this episode. So you just need to be able to just listen and know what God's voice is rather than your own. And just knowing what he wants for you and not just what you want.
Also, don't forget that God's voice is never going to be mean. Like, he's never going to be rude to you and tell you. I mean, he'll never be, what's it called? Where you're in your head and you're going, hey, you idiot. Like, he's not going to call you an idiot. Like,
right.
So it's always the good voice that you hear.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And then just know that, you're going to have different purposes each season of your life. It's not always going to be just one thing, but it'll lead to your overall purpose for God.
And then also just remember that who you're surrounding yourself with makes a huge difference, and that you want to surround yourself with good people. And then it's also going to take getting out of your comfort zone. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah. God's just not going to make it plain and simple, What's the point of that?
And it doesn't have to be anything you're good at either.
Yeah.
Like, he's really good about taking what you're not good at and making it for his good.
Yeah. And then finally, just make sure you're committed to what he wants you to do. If you're not going to be committed, there's no point. And you're going to waste your time. And you need to 100% commit yourself to God and what he wants in your life.
There will be people who are like, that's so silly, like, you're wasting your time. You could be putting your energy and your efforts towards something else. And it's like, if you know in your head that that's what, in your heart, that's what God's wanting you to do, don't let them do that. Like, just stay focused, do your thing, you got this, and it'll all work out.
So before we go, we had a poll this week.
Woo-hoo.
We had, I think, 23 votes, which is so awesome. We are going to do a challenge for a whole month, either self-care or health-care. Now, before we go into who won that, they go hand in hand. We know that. To be able to work on your physical health, you have to be emotionally healthy too. They go hand in hand.
Obviously when you're working out, you're taking care of yourself, and that's great. It's good for your mental well-being too, but also just self-care is also taking care of yourself physically. You know, it's you care enough about yourself. You're telling yourself, hey, you matter. Get your butt up and go work out. Like,
right.
It's
yeah,
okay.
For sure. And so a lot of the challenge will be both, even though we just had you pick one or the other. It's going to be both.
Yeah.
And that's just how, that's just how it is. That's just how.
That's part of it.
Yeah. So self-care did win.
Woo-hoo.
So we will be doing a self-care challenge for, I think it is actually 24 days. But, I mean, that's close enough to a month.
Right.
And we will, in a couple weeks, we are going to start that. We're not going to start that quite yet, so we can make sure that everything's good to go. And we actually have a lot planned for the next 2 months.
Yeah, it's so exciting. So exciting. excited.
So we're actually going to hopefully do a 5-part series about infertility. We plan on having some guests for that leading up to Mother's Day.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of what PCOS is about. And, you know, it's infertility. That's a scary thought, but a lot of people go through that even without PCOS. Something that has stuck with us is our God's stronger than PCOS.
Oh, yeah. We know plenty of people who have PCOS that have kids. It's not impossible, but it does make it a little more difficult. And we know that if that's in our season and our purpose and our plans from Him, then He will help that happen.
Yeah.
But also we want to bring awareness that infertility is a real thing, and just kind of the different aspects of infertility and the different stages or emotional stages you go through when you find out that you could be that you could have infertility.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to all different kinds of things that we have planned. Taking you guys along on this journey means a lot to us.
So much.
It's not just helping you guys, but it's helping us a lot. So our encouraging verse to end the episode is Deuteronomy 33:27. The eternal God is your refuge, and His everlasting arms are under you. Kind of in the season that we're in, where we're trying to start this podcast and help people, but it's really God helping us.
Yeah. Obviously, we are aware that it is what God wants us to do, because we had our aha moment and we've been praying and everything about it. But it's just kind of a nice little reminder that, hey, this is what I want you to do, but I'm also here for you. That's kind of what I feel like God's like, I've got you.
Yeah.
And
I feel like He's guiding us along the way.
Yeah, and comforting us. And it's just kind of a good reminder that, He's got us.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We know it was kind of a lot to process this time around, but we're excited that you were here and stayed along for our journey. Can't wait to show you what's coming up in the next few weeks.
We hope that we'll hear from you this week on Facebook. We also have Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. So we hope to hear from you, and we hope you have a great week.
Bye.